Hello and welcome to another edition of the Real EFL Preview Show with me, Gary Hutchinson. Today, despite the fine weather, we've got the Blues. The Blues of Birmingham City, that is. They're up already, and we'll be looking ahead to their potential double as they face the EFL Trophy final this weekend. That's the same feat they achieved in 1995. It would be remarkable. There's lots more going on around the EFL at the top and the bottom of the tables. And to ensure you don't miss a minute of it, please subscribe to this channel and drop a like on the video. It helps get us out there and it helps keep you informed. When I say it helps get us out there, it isn't just me on the show. And as ever, I'm joined by EFL expert Kyle Keneally. How are you enjoying the sunshine there in your curtained room with the light on?
Yeah, it doesn't really match, does it, sitting in a room like this when it's such beautiful weather outside? I'll blame the location, the fact that the sun is shining in here and it doesn't make for great lighting. But no, I'm very good, thank you. I've come back to Lincoln for about a week. I've finished uni, which seems ridiculous because we are in April and I don't go back until September. I've still got a couple of essays to do, but yeah, it feels really weird to be done at the moment, but I'm looking forward to this weekend, and I'm certainly looking forward to next weekend. I love Easter weekend for footballing reasons because you get the Good Friday, the Easter Monday games, and it feels like so much can happen. But with the tables as they are at the moment, it doesn't actually feel like there'll be a lot done over them weekends, but I'm still very, very happy to have this coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, 6-point swings make a huge difference when you think that that's the difference in the championship between Luton in 23rd and Portsmouth in 17th. So an awful lot can happen over the Easter weekend. But one thing that we know that absolutely guaranteed will not happen is Birmingham City will not drop out of the top two in League One because they have been promoted. They will be champions. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever about that. When they came into the division, there was a slight question mark over whether they will adapt. You know, everybody in League One thought it'd be hilarious if they come in and fail, which is exactly what Huddersfield have done. But that was never, ever going to happen from game one onwards. They have been absolutely unstoppable. Their squad is championship quality. In places, you could even argue that it's probably better than Southampton's squad in the Premier League, particularly those holding midfielders who are just a cut above. What are your thoughts on the Blues being up after one single season?
Well, they'll be playing Southampton next year. Southampton were relegated at the weekend. They've been brilliant all season. I don't think anywhere I'm on the record saying anything about them struggling, so I can take that and not have that over me. As I've seen loads of Birmingham fans this week trolling up old tweets of people who had said they would perhaps not go up or they won't break their points record. I think that was the one for me when I saw them. I saw people saying they'd be unbeaten, which probably a lot were in jest. But yeah, they look set to go and break the League One points record now, which I think is 103, achieved by Wolves back in 2014, it may have been. And they'd probably go and beat Reading's 106 points, which I believe is the record for the whole of the EFL. As well, they've been magnificent all season. Just the 3 league losses, they broke all sorts of club records and 17 points clear of Wycombe in third at the moment. It's just been a really, really good season for them. As you say, that they are ready for the championship. Most feel already, given how well they've done this year. And obviously, this is the big difference between the usual clubs that have dropped down from the championship, the bigger sort of clubs, your Derbys, your Sunderlands, your Sheffield Wednesdays over the years, who have had financial trouble, whereas Birmingham came into this division probably in the best financial situation they've been in a long, long time, and that has ultimately proved the difference. You can have all the money you want; it doesn't guarantee success. There are plenty of teams higher up the division, at the moment that will prove that. They obviously have spent; everyone knows that, but they've done really, really well. As I say, 95 points already. And they should certainly go and break those records.
Now, one record they will not break is the record for the maximum number of points under the old 2 points for a win system, which, Kyle, as everybody knows, is a record held by the mighty Lincoln City. Now, if Lincoln Lincoln's record in 1975-76, which was the 74 points, was transferred to 3 points for a win, it would be 106 points. So Birmingham are certainly on for that. They've got 29 wins in that season. Lincoln have 32. I don't care about Wolves. I don't care about anybody else other than Lincoln. But they will not beat our goals tally that year of 111 unless they score something like 37 or 38 goals, I think, between now and the end of the season. That won't happen. But one thing that they are highly likely to be coveting is that league and cup double. Now, back in 1995, the last time the Giants of Birmingham City dropped into the Paupers League of Division 3, they won not only the title, but what was then, I think, the Auto Windscreen Shield final. Now, if I remember correctly, Barry Fry was connected to Birmingham at the time. This year, he will be supporting the opposite side, Peterborough United, but it's the EFL Trophy final. What are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, there's obviously another side that we haven't mentioned yet. Peterborough virtually secured their safety in League One this season. They've had a really good run. Dropped a little bit in recent weeks. I know they lost to Reading. They had a shock 4-0 loss at the weekend against Northampton. Obviously, these two played each other on Tuesday night when Birmingham got promoted, but they gave a much better account of themselves in a 2-1 loss. They had 4 wins to 6 prior to that defeat against Reading, a couple of draws in there as well against Blackpool and Wickham, which virtually pulled them out of any sort of relegation fears, which did look very, very likely throughout February. But I think a lot said, I think even I may have mentioned months ago and said that when perhaps the likes of Kwame Poku returned in March, that they should be more than fine. And that has been the case. They look firmly set in mid-table now. And I also think I mentioned that it would be a successful season for most of the clubs in this division getting to the final of this competition, even winning it as Peterborough did last year. Along with survival, I know at the start of the season, most of Posh's supporters would have hoped to be challenging in around the playoffs as they have for the last couple of years, but that has not transpired. But to be in mid-table, I think they'll be somewhat happy with how the season's gone, and if they can pull off an almighty shock on Sunday, then it will be an even better season for Peterborough.
Yeah, obviously Peterborough were the victims or the patsies this weekend against Birmingham as Birmingham sewed up the title. So it could be a Peterborough double for Birmingham, or they could put a spanner in the works because, of course, Peterborough are actually looking for their own unique double, which would be back-to-back EFL Trophy victories. So it's going to be a really interesting final. I believe the medals are being presented by a certain Liam Scully as well. So he's connected now to the EFL, obviously, and also a Lincoln City figure. If you had to predict, is it going to be a league and cup double for Birmingham, or is it going to be back-to-back cup successes for Peterborough United?
I think Birmingham win, but I'm expecting a fair few goals in the game. Birmingham scored 6 against Barnsley recently. We know how Peterborough are in front of goal. Just this little stat for you. At the start of the month, Peterborough beat Crawley 4-3, which was the second time this season they beat Crawley 4-3. They have plenty of goals in them. They're a really good side going forward. They're letting plenty at the back. But I'm going for a 3-2 Birmingham win.
Yeah, I'm going for a Birmingham win as well. And putting 4 past Crawley twice in a season, it's not that difficult, is it? We've all done it. Moving on, there is one other situation I think that can be decided this weekend without a doubt, and that would be the relegation of Shrewsbury. And it brings us back round to one of my favourite subjects, Lincoln City, because obviously Shrewsbury travel to Sincilbank. I think knowing that a defeat would leave them unable to get enough points if results went the other way. They're currently 13 points adrift with 15 to play for. So a defeat here would leave them only 12 to play for, which would not be enough. It has been a very sorry season for Salop, hasn't it?
Yeah, certainly. I watched them a couple of weeks ago against Birmingham, and they were well beaten that day in the end, as a lot of teams have been this season, by Birmingham. So it's probably not the best judge of games. Lincoln versus Shrewsbury at Sincilbank has been a game actually that I've missed over the last couple of years. So it'll be nice to see Lincoln play Shrewsbury. I'm in the press box on Saturday, which will be an interesting one as well. Michael Appleton is back at Sincilbank, and it will be even more interesting, obviously, if Shrewsbury get relegated in this game, which looks very, very likely. There are obviously a couple of other permutations that could send them down if Bristol Rovers win. That also sends them down regardless of what Shrewsbury do. They have to better the Gases result of the weekend. And even if it isn't this weekend, it is probably going to be on Good Friday, or at least in the next few weeks, it is almost certain they will be playing League Two football next season. I think they're the longest serving team, or obviously were the longest serving team in the third tier. I think they've had 10 years at this level. So yeah, we are losing one of the longest serving teams, and there's also potential that Burton, I think, are second on the list. They've been in for 7, if I remember correctly. So yeah, it could be a shake up in the third tier next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bristol Rovers have lost 5 on the spin, by the way, which comes on the back of a 5-0 defeat. And I keep doing it at Sinsel Bank, which stopped a run of 3 games without defeat and 7 points from 9. So it's not by any means guaranteed that they will beat Exeter at this weekend. And you are quite right, of course. If we lose Shrewsbury, they are the longest serving member of League One. And if we lose Burton Albion, they are the second longest serving member of League One. Which, Kyle, would make which club the longest serving member of League One when we kick off next season?
It would be Lincoln City on 6 years. I saw this on Twitter earlier, which is why I've included it. I think it was courtesy of Matt Fenton, I think, who I'd seen it from. So I'll give him credit for this wonderful statistic. But yes, it would be Lincoln.
It would. And it would actually be our 7th season. We've now had 6 seasons, I believe, in League One. And that is the same number of seasons that we endured in the National League. Funny, isn't it, how the National League seemed so much longer than the whirlwind of League One. Albeit, of course, we lost a season and 2 months to COVID. Right, let's see if we can find something that I can't link to Lincoln. We'll move into the Championship now. Lots to decide at the top and bottom. We could talk about the Championship all day. The wheels came off Leeds United. They've managed to reattach those wheels now, and they've sabotaged Sheffield United. The wheels have come off their promotion. It's thrilling at the top. The teams seem to be handing each other promotion, Premier League promotion on a plate, but at the bottom, it is really thrilling. I alluded to that 6-point gap between Luton in 23rd and Portsmouth in 17th. 2 teams between those are Cardiff City and Stoke City. Now, Cardiff have been in the mire all season, but Stoke have just been hovering on the edge of the relegation zone, never really able to pull themselves away, but up until recently, didn't really feel like they were going to get dragged into it. Cardiff City are 22nd, Stoke are 20th. 2 points the difference. This could be a huge weekend for Cardiff City. Both of these teams had late game goals in their games on Tuesday evening as well, but at opposing ends. How does that affect their mentality going into this game?
Yeah, well, it's huge psychologically as well as the table. Firstly, Stoke, so they led through Lewis Baker's deflected effort, I think, with about 15 minutes to play, but they conceded in stoppage time against Luton, a team, as you say, who are also in the relegation mix at the moment. Cardiff, meanwhile, they were a goal down. I think they led. They were behind twice against Preston on Tuesday evening, but they managed to equalise in the 94th minute. If you look at all the teams actually in the bottom 8 currently, none of them won on Tuesday evening. There were 4 draws and 4 losses. So it was a pretty dismal week for all the teams. Plymouth were well beaten yesterday evening at Swansea. As I say, I've mentioned Luton there, I've mentioned Cardiff. Derby drawing against Burnley, which obviously seemed a very, very good point. It's been a really good couple of weeks at the bottom for many teams, but not so much on Tuesday evening, which means that this game holds even more significance.
Yeah, now Stoke haven't actually beaten Cardiff in 10 fixtures. Now, their last win was Saturday, the 22nd of February 2020, just before COVID gripped us. They've met, of course, twice this season, a 3-3 draw at Stoke in the FA Cup and a 2-2 draw in the Championship back in December. So there's not a lot between these two sides. Now, Cardiff do remain in the bottom 3, but they are unbeaten in their last 4 games. Okay, they've drawn 3 in a row. Do you think they can pick up the win here and move out of the bottom 3 this weekend?
Well, I think interestingly as well, at the same time on Saturday, Derby play Portsmouth, which is another game between sides in and around the bottom of the division, and certainly supporters of both these clubs will have a keen eye on the game. They had a stalemate against QPR last weekend. They drew to Sheffield Wednesday at the end of April, at the end of March. They had a big win against Blackburn prior to that, a Rovers side that really dropped off recently, having lost John Eustace, who is now obviously at Derby. They had a late loss against Luton at home, which seemed like a real hammer blow. And that was the third successive 2-1 loss in a row. I think they lost to Burnley as well in that time. If you look at their remaining games, at least 3 of them looks like games against teams that have still got something to play for. They've got Sheffield United on Good Friday in the evening. So again, that is after many of their teams around them in the table play. They've got 2 home fixtures against Oxford and then West Brom. Oxford, obviously, not quite safe just yet, and West Brom hoping to reignite their form. They've lost a few games in a row, slipped out of the playoffs. They'll be hoping that by the time that game comes around, they've still got something to play for. And then it's Norwich on the final day. Probably unlikely that the Canaries will have anything to play for, truth be told, but they could still, and there is obviously a massive chance that Cardiff will by that point. They really need wins at the moment to pull themselves out of the relegation zone.
Now we're talking about stalemates. So the last 2 meetings between these teams have been draws. Cardiff have had numerous draws. Likewise, Stoke have had stalemates in their last 2 games as well. They've missed the chance to pull away from the drop zone. Do you think that can make it third time lucky? Can they take the points on Saturday?
Well, given what you've just said there about the past couple of fixtures this season, I think it'll end up a draw on Saturday. But Stoke are 2 points clear following their midweek results. They rescued a point at Preston at the weekend. They trailed in that game. They've had a pretty decent run of form, though. Obviously, at this time of the season, it's absolutely crucial. They won 2 of their final 3 games in March. They were both at home against QPR and, again, Blackburn. Their only loss in this sort of recent run was Millwall. But they have a very, very tough run in. All 3 Yorkshire sides in the division. Sorry, not all 3, because there are Hull as well, who technically class as a Yorkshire side. And I guess Middlesbrough, although some people would beg to differ. Yeah, well, some people class them as North Yorkshire, don't they? But anyway, I'm not getting into geographical arguments. Yes, there's Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. A game against Leeds is in between that on Easter Monday. And their final game of the season, what a game this could be. They're at Pride Park against Derby County, which could be absolutely huge. Obviously, at the moment, there are only 2 points separating them 2 sides as well, because Derby are level with Cardiff in the table.
So that's looked at the bottom of the Championship. We're now going to look at the bottom of League One while I digest the fact that Middlesbrough is actually in North Yorkshire. I'd never thought of Middlesbrough as Yorkshire. I always think of it northeast, kind of like Sunderland and Newcastle. Anyway, at the bottom of League One, we've already talked about Shrewsbury, who are not just in dire straits, but they're going down. Another team that you would consider to be almost certain to be relegated are Cambridge United. They are 7 points from safety with 15 to play. The 23rd in the table, and they host 5th place Charlton Athletic this week. Now, if Cambridge were to pull off a result, it would be incredibly unique. They have not beaten Charlton Athletic since February 1992. Now, this is a game all about sevens. Charlton are 7 points clear of Bolton, who sit just outside the playoffs, so they look comfortable, whereas Cambridge are 7 adrift of Bristol Rovers and looking absolutely doomed. Now we're managing to bring this back round to Lincoln City once again, because the Addicts missed the chance of putting pressure on the top 2 last weekend. Worried, I think, by the early fixture where Wrexham got the win. They then dropped points against the resilient, resurgent, and quite simply outstanding in the first 45 minutes, Lincoln City. Does that result put automatic promotion beyond them, do you think?
Yeah, probably at this point of the season. As you say, that gap feels quite significant now. If they are to do so, then they've got a very, very tough run in. A game against Northampton, probably their only massively winnable game following this. They play 2nd and 3rd after that. So if they are to have any chance of getting automatic promotion, they're going to have to beat 2 of the teams above them in the table. So at least on that part, it leaves it, I'm not going to say in their own hands, because it is not at all, but it gives them obviously something to aim for. Yes, as I say, games against Wycombe and Wrexham. Wrexham, the penultimate game of the season, live on Sky. I think it's a 5:30 kickoff. And then they are against Burton on the final day of the season. They've fallen to 5th as well after that draw at the weekend. They've only lost 3 league games, though, since the 3rd of December. Only Birmingham have taken more points in that time. They are 51 from 24. When I was looking through their games, I just kept having to go back. Because they are in really good form over that time period. They are 6th, the 3rd best side in that run. They've won 15 games, which is very, very impressive. Only one loss in 10, a freak result, you'd perhaps say, against Peterborough. They lost 3-0. They thrashed Huddersfield. They've had wins without conceding against Exeter, Barnsley, Crawley. But yes, as you say, they were shocked by Lincoln at the weekend, going 2-0 down. But they recovered to draw a point I don't think Nathan Jones was particularly happy with in the end. And as you say, they'd obviously seen that Wrexham had won before them, which put the pressure back onto them. And at this point of the season, it's very, very hard to imagine. It's very hard to imagine Wickham overtaking them at the moment, despite the fact they won in midweek. The gap is 3 points there. So there is still potential. And I want this to happen for it to come down to the final day, because I would like Wrexham to have something to play for when they play Lincoln. And I would still like us to knock them out of the top two, but I think it's feeling ever less likely of happening at the moment. But there is a fair old chance that Wrexham will be celebrating promotion by the time they come to Lincoln.
Yeah, I actually want Wrexham to be promoted because it gets them out of the division. And it means that the stories that are being written are not about big spending Birmingham and Hollywood Wrexham. It means that some others can get a look in. And one of the teams likely to get a look in if they stay down are Charlton. But for me, I think they're a side that are heading up via the playoffs. And I think, as you say, over the second half of the season, they've been one of the best sides. Lincoln were perhaps, we did ride our luck a little bit at times at the weekend. And I think, again, playing Cambridge United, they've got Burton, as you say. I think they're in a good position. Now, Cambridge extended an unbeaten run to 4 games, albeit 7 points from 4 games, with a win against Shrewsbury. That does leave them with a smidgen of a hope of survival. They still have Burton to play. They've got an out-of-form Huddersfield as well. Do they have any chance at all of pulling off a great escape?
Yes, but it's very, very small, as you say. I think it is very, very small. And it requires a result at the weekend. If they don't win, which I don't think they will, then I would say it is all but over. But I don't want to count them out at all. As I say, it feels very, very difficult at this point of the season. And this run has come a little too late, I think. Probably the most annoying thing in this run was their game against Barnsley when they were 1-0 up until the 92nd minute when they conceded late on. James Brophy scored in that game, and he also scored the game prior to that, or I think it was after, against Northampton. He had not scored a league goal since October 2021 before scoring in consecutive games, which I thought was an interesting little statistic when I was doing some programme research the other week before. I can't remember who Cambridge were. I think it might have been. Oh, yeah, it was against Shrewsbury, yes, because they beat Shrewsbury at the weekend. Yeah, as I say, the situation would have looked a lot better had they won that game. 4 losses in a row prior to that had killed off all hopes, though, really. And even with this run, it feels very, very difficult. All them losses, though, were by a single goal, which you just feel if they could have got a goal from somewhere, if they could have held on to their lead at Barnsley, it's all ifs and buts. But you do feel that there would have been a slight chance. As you say, they've got Huddersfield to play, Leyton Orient as well at home, which will be a really big game. Orient still with a slight chance of getting into the playoffs. That 6 points are against Burton as well. And then likely champions Birmingham. I think it's pretty certain. I think Birmingham require a point for the title on the final day of the season. Birmingham, obviously, looking for that points record, as I say. So they still might have something to play for by that point in terms of trying to break a points record. Cambridge probably by that point will be relegated, though.
Now, in terms of having something to play for, there is nowhere more interesting than League Two. It is fascinating this season. 3 points separate the top 4. Fourth, Doncaster Rovers with 70 points, then have a game in hand of the 3 teams above them. So it could be that by the end of next week, 1 point separates the top 4. Then below them, Wimbledon, Notts County, both on 68, Grimsby on 65, Colchester and Crewe 62 and 61, but Salford there 58. If they were to win their game in hand, which comes against Doncaster Rovers, they would be back in. So arguably everybody down in 11th has got something to play for. This weekend could be defining, and certainly when we talk about 6-point weekends like Easter weekend, oh my Lord, League Two is going to see a major, major shake-up. Now this weekend, the big one has got to be Doncaster versus AFC Wimbledon, 4th versus 5th. This is absolutely huge. A win for Doncaster, then going into their game in hand with Salford would actually put them in the driving seat, probably not just for promotion, but almost for the title as well. Their goal difference 5 less than Bradford, but 1 more than Port Vale, and obviously a win against Wimbledon would improve that. So first of all, let's talk about Doncaster. They've got a game in hand on Tuesday evening. It is against Salford City, but they need a positive outcome against AFC Wimbledon. Can they get it?
It's going to be a very, very tough game at the weekend. You said there about all the games this weekend. It is also Morecambe versus Carlisle down at the bottom. Whoever loses that, you would say, are down. If no team win it, they're probably both down. But we are focusing on the top of the table. And yeah, as you say, it is huge, a really, really big weekend. And if you talk about Doncaster, you have to start with their running as well. They play Bradford on the penultimate weekend of the season. They're at Notts County on the final day. They have Colchester as well still to play. And they have Tranmere, a resurgent Tranmere side as well. They have a very, very difficult run-in. And this is what makes League Two the division to watch at the moment. It is by far my favourite to look at. Every week we come back and something has changed. Walsall were finally knocked off the top of the table. Bradford are the new leaders in League Two. If you look at Doncaster, they're only 1 loss in 9 since the middle of February. They returned to winning ways at Cheltenham. We had Rob Street scoring on Saturday. After a late blow against Walsall, who were leading the division at the time of their game last Tuesday. They led twice, but were denied at the death, Donny were that day. They eased past Carlisle. I think they also eased past Newport earlier in March. But they only won 2 of their last 6 games. They've had a few draws against Crewe and Swindon. And before that, and as I say, as you mentioned as well, their game in hand against Salford on Tuesday is absolutely huge. Whatever happens this weekend, it could make or break their season.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also a big one for fantasy league players because it's the Doncaster and Salford are the only double game week teams this week. So fascinating one. Get on Luke Molyneux, he's my captain. AFC Wimbledon, they've got a boost today. I think that Matty Stevens has signed a new deal with them. They're 4 points adrift of the automatic promotion places, despite their win at the weekend. Obviously, something against Doncaster would fire them into that conversation and possibly leave 5 teams by him, not just for promotion, but for the title. But 4 points, is the gap too big to overcome at this point of the season for the Wombles?
No, because it is League Two, and as we've said for weeks, it feels like that no team wants to get automatically promoted, and Wimbledon have been proof of that. I would actually argue there are 6 still in contention. Notts County have a slight chance as well. It is sure to be a really, really good end to the season. They edged past Harrogate at the weekend. Another Lincoln loney, Alistair Smith, scoring their only goal of the game. They had a devastating midweek loss, though. Lost my words there, against Swindon, 2 90-plus minute penalties against Swindon. I had notifications on for this game, and I could not believe it. I think I said last week I'd taken a screenshot of the table when it was so tight, even tighter than it is at the moment, when Wimbledon were winning. But Walsall scored a late equaliser against Doncaster, and then them 2 Swindon goals. And that feels like it's really hit them at the moment. When I was looking back, though, over their form, they may have only won 3 of their last 11, but they tend to do well against the better sides. Look at all these results. They beat Bradford, Crewe, Notts County, Doncaster, all at home, all without conceding. And they've had draws away at Colchester, Walsall, Crewe. I think these were all since November, December sort of time. So they tend to get good results at home. They get points away from home, and I back them to get a point at the weekend, purely based on that. They've got Chesterfield. They've got Port Vale as well, which could be a huge game. They travel to Gillingham, and they've got potential opponents in the playoffs, Grimsby, on the final day of the season.
Yeah, stranger things have happened than playing the same team in the final game of the season that you then play in the playoffs as well. Can't think of any examples, but I'm absolutely sure that some viewers will. Just a quick word on Walsall. I know you've not prepped anything for this. 2 wins in 16. They're collapsing very, very similarly to, and it's the final mention, I promise, Lincoln in 2006-07 when we were top of the table in October. If you're a Saddlers fan right now, you've got to be panicking, surely.
Yeah, I think we said in January when Nathan Lowe was obviously recalled, and we said that it feels like they've got too much of a gap at this point. It felt impossible that they would bottle promotion. But as the weeks have gone by, even with the other sides below them sort of dropping points at various parts of the season, Walsall have just gradually that gap has got smaller and smaller, and they've finally been knocked off the top of the table. They do face a really, really tough few weeks in terms of keeping their place in the automatic promotion places. A word on Nathan Lowe. Obviously, he's not been included by Mark Robbins. I think he's been playing for the under-21 side. So it does feel like a lone recall that has definitely gone wrong, and Walsall fans will certainly feel very, very strongly about that. As I say, though, it's certainly detrimented their season. And even if they do go up at the moment, they face an almighty battle in the summer to recruit and get themselves in a position where they are ready again for League One football. I don't know whether they will be able to hold on to that place, though.
One thing I would say is that their running is favourable. Barrow, Harrogate, Newport and Accrington are their next 4 games before they travel to Crewe on the final game of the season. But again, potentially Crewe Walsall could be a playoff game as well. So it's fascinating. Right across the EFL from the Championship through to League Two, there's loads and loads to keep an eye on. In actual fact, League One is probably the most boring of the divisions, because anybody could be relegated still from like 17th down in the Championship. League Two, you almost feel like somebody could come from 10th to the playoffs and be promoted. Plenty to look forward to, certainly ahead of a bumper weekend next weekend. Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. You'll be back with us next week to pick over 2 games, a 2-game weekend, which will be particularly interesting. Are you attending any games other than Lincoln this weekend?
Yes, I've got a bumper weekend. I'm at Notts County tomorrow night. I'm in the press box for that. I will be at Wembley as well on Sunday, and I may even travel to Hull on Monday when they play Coventry.
Hull and Coventry. Brilliant. Well, we'll get the benefit of your expertise next week, but for now, we thank you, Kyle. And that was yet another show, a real EFL preview show, packed full of great information. There's still so much to look forward to, even though we are entering not just the business end of the season, but we're on the final straight. Teams can see the finish line. Which ones will drop to their knees? Which ones will drop through the trapdoor? You can guarantee whatever happens, we're going to be here to analyse, discuss, and try and get Lincoln City crowbarred in at every opportunity. My name is Gary Hutchinson. If you enjoyed this video, please do click the like button, subscribe to the video, share it with friends as well. And if you didn't like it, do all of that anyway. Do a nice thing for us. In the meantime, we'll see you all again soon, and I hope your team does well this weekend, unless it's Shrewsbury.